Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor. I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. And now, after the stuff that we were talking about last week in regards to the stages of intimacy and some of the stuff around how ridiculous humans are when it comes to getting into relationships and what we find attractive, and all that kind of thing, and some of the stuff that I've talked about in the past on the channel in regards to the relationship side of life. There's one thing that I've touched on numerous times, but I've never really gotten into, and I feel like, especially after some of the stuff that I was talking about last week, especially the stages of intimacy thing, it's kind of important to touch on, and that is the relationship dynamics vary as widely as people do, and it's one thing to say, yes, this is a good way for a relationship to be, being honest, being open, communicative, all those kind of things, and those are very broad labels to attach to things. You know, if you're communicative, that could be that you're being very communicative about absolutely everything, about things that you agree on, about that need to be talked about, about very specific things that are only really kind of relevant or useful to your relationship. And so, that's a very broad thing to say that you can narrow down in whatever way you need to narrow it down. And as long as you've got like the person on the other side of the relationship kind of on the same level, agreeing with it, kind of happy with what's there, then that's fine. Nothing else is required. But there's also a lot of with a lot of this talk around relationships and around things like that. You have a lot of people kind of imposing their own norms on things, and in some cases that's not a bad thing. In some cases, like if you are seeing a friend go through a really tough time with a relationship, then there is a chance or a good kind of good opportunity there for someone to employ their own perception of what is normal, what is good, what is right, what they would want onto a relationship to try and kind of spot where there might be problems and where their friend might be really struggling and needs support and all that kind of thing. Whether or not that friend is in a bad relationship and potentially needs a way out. But this can also lead to confusion. It can lead to upsets. Someone who, for instance, is in a relationship that isn't necessarily hyper normal in terms of the way that they treat their partner or are treated by their partner, on the fringes of kind of the BDSM community, considering that has been picking up in terms of popularity and things since 50 Shades of Grey made that big splash about it not so long ago, or in terms of polyamory and things like that, where you've got that growth within that community. And, as a result, it can lead to these odd rule sets, these odd kind of dynamics between people, especially in terms of like polyamorous relationships, where you've got so many different people potentially moving within a circle, within a sphere of influence, and each one may very well have different rules employed for different partners that they happen to be with at the time. It's all decided by those individuals in those relationships, and so someone looking from the outside in, that might be really difficult to understand, especially if it's something that they just couldn't get into themselves. And so as a result, kind of looking at relationships in this way, we need to appreciate that there needs to be a lot more questions asked than there need to be assumptions made. And yes, sometimes I've talked about abusive relationships, I've talked about kind of shitty breakups and all that kind of thing before, and kind of people in uneven relationships. But the thing that stands out, that separates the good from the bad, there is agreement. If you've got someone who wants to be, say, degraded on a daily basis, in which case, there are lots of people that probably wouldn't want that. But if that's something that's been agreed between those two people, it's what they want, and no harm that isn't consensual is being done, as it were, then it's on no one else other than those people engaged within that relationship to kind of deal with that. yes, there should be people that are there to voice concern. There are people who should be there to care. And on the part of the people in the relationships, if someone comes and voices a concern, asks a question, just tries to check in with you, don't get offended. Don't flip out. The number of times that I have seen people in maybe not such conventional relationships, or coming out of a community that has left them with new ideas, and then they try to employ those in their next relationship or something like that. When you've got those kind of things going on, if someone's coming to check in on you and ask some questions, it's because they care. If they then start berating you, then fine, push them out again. But if they're just coming in to check on you, make sure you're alright, make sure you're not jumping into something too fast, making sure that you know what you're doing, that you're being safe, that you know who you're doing it with, all that kind of thing, that you're not being taken advantage of, then don't push those people away. They are there because they care. They are there because they either want to take an interest in your life to the extent that they can help you out or keep an eye on you, just make sure that you're doing okay, or they're there because they already care about you, family, friends, whatever, and they want you to be happy in the thereafter. And so don't, on the part of people asking those questions, again, try not to be particularly judgmental. Go in with an open mind. It's not going to affect you in any way. It's entirely that other person's life, so don't kind of impose your thoughts and yourself on it too much. But in regards to those people who are being questioned and things like that, then it's a case of going, okay, well, this person is doing this because they care, and so because they care, I should at least take the time to make sure that they know what's going on. You don't have to tell them everything, but just that you're okay. If someone's coming to ask you about the way that a new boyfriend is treating you, the way that a new girlfriend is treating you, because you're, as I've said in previous videos, those people around you are going to be the ones that spot what you're doing and what's going on with you when you're in, as we were talking about last week, that honeymoon phase, or when you're just kind of filled with your own love drugs, and so you're not going to be seeing things clearly. You're not going to be making good decisions. You're going to be making very slanted decisions, and you're going to be seeing the world through a very kind of rose-tinted spectacle kind of filter. And so, listen to those people, check in with those people, let them check in with you, and it's a case of then, between the people in the relationship, discuss things. Make sure that, someone raises a point about kids, or about what you agree on, or about whatever else that they seem to think is going to come along in your future, what you might have mentioned is coming along in your future, what they're assuming. If there's a gap in what you can reply with, even if you don't want to reply, if there's a gap, go back and talk to your partner about it. Actually go and have that conversation. So and so was saying this, I realised that we've not talked about this before, and that we don't have an answer to it, in which case, to make sure that we're just as watertight as we can be, let's have a chat. Simple, easy, straightforward. It allows you just to round out your knowledge of your relationship, your partner's knowledge of your relationship, make sure you're both on the same level, both agreeing to everything, and even when you're not agreeing to things, that there's still maybe a way to either just shelve it for the time being or work around it. Either way, it's all stuff that can be worked out there, and then beyond that, it's a case of making sure the if things are agreed, if things are kind of discussed between the two of you and a resolution is reached, then you keep up with your end of it. Relationship dynamics can vary widely. They can be very different, and they're almost always very, very particular in one way or another to the couple or to the group that are involved in them. And yet, if you've got a couple agreeing on something, and then one of them tries their hardest to make sure that that's fulfilled and the other one doesn't do anything, that's, again, the dynamic doesn't really exist, because it's only one-sided. Only one half of it is doing what's supposed to be done. and so as a result, it begins to collapse. It begins to break down. You know, even if it's something that one side of the relationship is just saying that they will effectively do. If it engages with the other side, if it's something that affects them in a positive way or whatever else, and that's why it's being done, the other half of the dynamic is maybe to show some gratitude, recognize that that's what's being done, that stuff's been put into the relationship by that other party or by that other half to ensure the continuation and the growth of that thing. So, you know, just to summarize, just to round it off, because there's not really a huge amount more to say on this, I don't feel, without kind of really deep diving into the different kinds of dynamics that we see most commonly. And even those don't really cover a lot, considering that they're again very broad definitions. But to sum up, if you're if you're establishing relationship dynamics and things like that, then make sure that you've agreed everything, make sure that everything's consensual, that you're just kind of working with that other person, two individuals working together to make a better space for both of you. Have those conversations, make those agreements, and then after that, for you guys, making sure that you both take part to the extent that you've agreed to take part is important. For those people on the outside of a relationship looking in, though, yes, look out for your friends. Yes, try and discuss with them when you see something off. And just check in, but don't impose too much on it. Don't make too many suppositions or too many assumptions, or suggest that your way of creating a relationship or doing what you do is better than anyone else's. You can share what has worked for you, if the same way that I do, for instance, but you have to be non-judgmental, and if they go, yeah, okay, that works for you, but that's not what I want, that's not what we want, then as long as they're happy and as long as they're not doing badly, then fine. There's nothing really more you can say or do. You've shown that you care. In regards to the person who's being questioned, be gracious, be reasonable. This person is saying these things and doing these things because they care. Only push them away if they're actually starting to berate you and try and get you to do what they want. This is the way it should be. You're doing something wrong. That's a time that maybe pushing them away again would be a good idea. Because they're obviously not there with your best interests in mind. They're there with their interests in mind over your relationship. But also, don't take offense. This person is there looking out, or trying to look out for you, trying to make sure you're okay. And so don't get offended just because they're worried about potentially a partner of yours that you might know very well, that you might care about an awful lot, but they might have only just met. So, allow them the leeway, allow them the kind of space to ask those questions of you, because potentially, especially if you're in that kind of honeymoon period where you're seeing through rose-tinted glasses and stuff like that, they might bring up some stuff that you haven't realized. They might highlight some problems that you may not be big problems or things that will cascade into disaster, but they're things that you might need to discuss with your partner. And also, it shows that they're caring. It shows that they want to be present in your life, and they're not one of those friends that's going to go, him or me, yeah? Because those kind of people don't tend to ask questions. They just kind of plant their battle lines, plant a flag and expect you to come running back to them because bros before hoes or something, when sometimes those people are incredibly unreasonable. And yeah, paying attention to your friends is important, trying to make sure that there's a balance, fine, but again, you shouldn't be put in a position of choosing between people that supposedly care about you. It's a case of going, if you've got a friend in a relationship doing whatever they are doing, then make sure they're okay. But otherwise, if they're making choices you disagree with, if they're doing stupid things that you don't think really will work for them, or if they're doing things that they've done before and it's always ended in disaster, fine, voice your concerns. But again, it's their life, it's what they're doing. You can only do so much. Me as a coach, there are times when I would love to go, you need to do this, why are you doing anything else? And yet then it's their path, it's their way of going through it, and I'm sat there. I've got to be non-judgmental. I've got to focus on the planning side of things and the developing side of things, the questioning side of things. And if they can answer all my questions, if they can get past everything that I'm putting in front of them to reflect on, to make sure that they're okay with their plan, that everything's going to be as watertight as possible, that they've got as much research and knowledge and resources as they need, there's a good chance that even though it doesn't seem right to me in that moment, if it was for me doing that thing that they are looking to do, then they are still potentially going to go on and do awesome things. You know, everyone has their own path, everyone has their own way of doing things. You need to appreciate that and accept that. But anyway, guys, I hope this has been kind of useful in addition to some of the stuff that we were talking about last week, especially for people looking in as well. I feel like the non-judgmental thing and just being there to care for the person that you care about rather than being there to impose anything. And also, again, don't flip out the people who care. If you're in that relationship that's being questioned, you know, they're there because they give a shit. Don't push those people away. Those people are the people that will look after you and help you out and support you if something does go wrong. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts, love to hear anything else that you would say on relationship dynamics and the judgments around it, and whether or not you would want to share the specifics of the kind of relationships that you've been in and how the dynamics have been maybe strange or odd or different, but how they've still worked. I don't know. It's up to you. I'd love to read whatever it is that you guys throw down there anyway. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe. And I will see you in the video later. Take care.